For over a century, Ford has been the backbone of American industry. But now, the company is making a move that could send shockwaves through the economy. Some see it as a betrayal, while others argue it's the only way for Ford to survive. This isn't just another corporate decision. It's a direct challenge to everything Trump stands for. What Ford just announced is set to change the game for American manufacturing, electric vehicles, and the future of U.S. jobs. And the fallout, it's only just beginning. At first, it seemed like a routine corporate update, another press release lost in the shuffle. But as the details emerged, the impact became undeniable. Ford had made a bold decision, one that signaled it was no longer playing by Trump's rules. The company confirmed that a significant portion of its electric vehicle production would be moved overseas. For a brand so deeply embedded in America's automotive identity, this was nothing short of a declaration. The response was immediate. News outlets broke the story within minutes, dissecting every angle. Social media erupted with debate, some applauding Ford's boldness, others calling it a betrayal. Workers, industry leaders, and politicians all weighed in, trying to grasp what this meant for the future of American manufacturing. But this wasn't a decision made on a whim. Ford had been navigating a tightening economic landscape for months, forced to choose between survival and staying, loyal to its American roots. When the moment came, the company made a move no one saw coming. And this was just the beginning. Ford wasn't just protecting its bottom line. It had just fired the first shot in a battle that would shake the entire industry. What pushed Ford to make such a drastic move? That's where the story takes an even more shocking turn. The real battle was happening behind the scenes, and at the heart of it all was one critical issue: the rising cost of production. Donald Trump's strict protectionist policies intended to keep jobs in the United States had unintended consequences for manufacturers. Tariffs on essential materials like steel, aluminum, and lithium, crucial for electric vehicle batteries, sent production costs soaring. What was meant to prioritize American industry had, for companies like Ford, become an unsustainable burden. Behind closed doors, Ford executives had been weighing their options. They knew that continuing domestic electric vehicle production under these policies would make them less competitive on the global stage. Meanwhile, international automakers, free from these restrictions, were producing vehicles at a fraction of the cost. If Ford wanted to stay in the game, it had no choice but to act. The tipping point came with supply chain instability. Constant disruptions in raw material imports led to ongoing production delays. In an industry operating on razor-thin margins, every added expense, every delay, could mean the difference between leading the market and falling behind. Ford saw the warning signs. The company had attempted to adapt, investing in domestic facilities and engaging with policymakers, but as conditions worsened, it became clear that staying the course was not an option. This wasn't just about Ford's survival, it was about the future of electric vehicles in the U.S. The company saw an opportunity to shift its focus toward international expansion, forging global partnerships to secure its place in the evolving market. And then, Ford made its move. The plan was set in motion, but once it became public, it was only a matter of time before Donald Trump responded. When he did not hold back. The news blindsided him, and his reaction was swift, forceful, and explosive. At a rally shortly after the announcement, he took the stage with fire in his eyes. Before he even spoke, the crowd erupted, sensing the fight about to unfold. When he finally addressed them, his message was clear. Ford has turned its back on the American worker. He roared, "They are shipping your jobs overseas while you're left to pick up the pieces. We built Ford. The American worker built Ford, and this is how they repay us?" The outrage was immediate. The crowd responded with chants of anger, and Trump, as always, knew exactly how to stoke the fire. He promised action, vowing that any company abandoning American jobs would face consequences. Tariffs, penalties, even the revocation of government contracts. Everything was on the table. But Ford had anticipated this response. They knew that making such a move would put them directly in Donald Trump's crosshairs. And yet, they went through with it anyway. Because this wasn't just about politics. The backlash was swift, but it wasn't only coming from Trump's base. News stations across the spectrum took their own positions. Some argued that Ford's decision was a necessary step in adapting to a changing global economy. Others framed it as a betrayal of the very workers who had kept the company alive for over a century. The debate quickly spread beyond the automotive industry. Political analysts weighed in, Economists made their predictions, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were forced to take a stance. Through it all, Ford remained steady, because this wasn't about making a statement. It was a calculated move, and they were about to make that clear to the entire world. Instead of backtracking, Ford doubled down. In a carefully worded press release, the company addressed the growing controversy head-on. There was no apology, no attempt to soften the impact. Instead, they framed the decision as a necessary step for survival, innovation, and progress. Ford has always been committed to leading the future of mobility, the statement read. As the industry evolves, we must make strategic decisions to ensure our ability to compete on a global scale. Our dedication to American jobs remains steadfast, but our priority is also to remain at the forefront of innovation. Ford wasn't just shifting production overseas to cut costs. They were positioning themselves to dominate the electric vehicle market. With global expansion came greater access to materials, lower production costs, and the ability to invest in cutting-edge battery technology. The statement also emphasized Ford's continued investment in the U.S., highlighting plans to expand research and development centers and increase domestic production of high-tech vehicle components. It was a calculated response, one that acknowledged concerns while standing firm on the decision. But the battle wasn't over. If anything, it had only begun. This wasn't just a corporate maneuver. It was a direct challenge to Donald Trump's economic agenda. And the war between the White House and one of America's most iconic automakers was only going to escalate. And what happened next? No one saw coming. Is Ford selling out the American worker, or is this the only way they can survive? That is the question dividing an entire nation. When Ford announced its decision to shift a significant portion of its electric vehicle production overseas, it was more than just a corporate move. It was a direct challenge to everything the American automotive industry had been built on. But the company is facing a reality it can no longer ignore. The cost of manufacturing electric vehicles in the U.S. is skyrocketing, in part due to tariffs on essential materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. These resources are the backbone of the electric vehicle revolution. Yet they are largely controlled by overseas markets. With supply chain disruptions and unpredictable trade policies, Ford has found itself in a position where staying competitive means making tough decisions. This isn't just about Ford. It signals a much larger shift in the global economy. Automakers are no longer just competing with each other. They are competing with entire nations and international trade networks. Ford's leadership believes that to stay ahead, they must embrace a more global strategy. Trump, however, sees this as a betrayal. Standing before a roaring crowd, he declared that Ford had abandoned the American worker, choosing profit over patriotism. His supporters echoed the sentiment, calling for boycotts and pushing for policies to force Ford to bring jobs back home. But what if there's more to this story? What if Ford isn't turning its back on America, but preparing for a battle against an even bigger competitor? That's where things get interesting. Ford isn't just fighting Trump, it's fighting Tesla. And that changes everything. Tesla has dominated the electric vehicle market for years, setting the benchmark in innovation, battery efficiency, and seamless software integration. Despite its legacy, Ford has struggled to keep up. The company has poured billions into establishing itself as a serious EV competitor. But in a world where Tesla has mastered direct-to-consumer sales and vertically integrated supply chains, Ford is still playing catch-up. Tesla's ability to manufacture and deliver electric vehicles faster and cheaper is forcing Ford to rethink its entire strategy. With Tesla expanding globally and setting up production hubs outside the United States, Ford sees no choice but to do the same. Ford isn't just moving production overseas to cut costs. It's securing its place in the future of the automotive industry. Tesla's rise has redefined consumer expectations. Vehicles are no longer just modes of transportation. Drivers now demand cutting-edge technology, continuous software updates, autonomous capabilities, and a well-integrated charging network for a seamless ownership experience. Ford's traditional model of manufacturing, selling through dealerships, and relying on gas-powered engines is rapidly becoming outdated. If the company doesn't act now, it risks being left behind. But this decision has consequences. While it may make Ford more competitive globally, it has triggered a wave of backlash. At home, the tension isn't just between Ford and Trump anymore. It has spread to Congress, and that's where the battle takes on an entirely new dimension. Ford's announcement has sent shockwaves through Washington, igniting a fierce political debate that extends far beyond the automotive industry. The decision has become a flashpoint in the ongoing battle over the future of American manufacturing, labor rights, and global competitiveness. Republicans accuse Ford of betraying American workers and caving to global economic pressures, while some Democrats praise the move as a bold step towards sustainability and long-term market leadership in an increasingly electrified world. Legislators, aligned with Trump, are pushing for immediate retaliation. There is talk of punitive tariffs targeting automakers that move production overseas, tax penalties for companies that shift jobs out of the country, and new restrictions on federal contracts for corporations that don't prioritize domestic manufacturing. Some lawmakers are even proposing revisiting trade agreements to introduce stricter regulations that would force automakers to keep operations within U.S. borders. The rhetoric is intensifying, with political leaders framing Ford's move as either a betrayal or a necessary evolution in a rapidly changing industry. On the other side, some lawmakers see Ford's decision as an inevitable shift. Rather than punishing the company, they argue that the focus should be on making America a more competitive hub for innovation. Momentum is growing behind expanding tax credits for electric vehicle manufacturing, investing in domestic battery production, and modernizing infrastructure to support the shift to electric transportation. Proponents believe that, with the right policies, the U.S. can lead the global EV revolution rather than fight against it. This divide isn't just political, it's deeply personal. Ford workers and their families are watching closely, wondering if their jobs are at risk or if new opportunities will emerge in the wake of this controversy. Auto unions are mobilizing, demanding assurances that American jobs won't be sacrificed for cost-cutting measures. Meanwhile, investors are analyzing this situation, weighing whether Ford's global gamble will enhance its long-term profitability or if the backlash will weaken its market position. Ford isn't backing down. They have a strategy, and it involves more than just shifting production. The company is making calculated moves that could redefine its future, shaping not only its role in the EV market, but also its standing in the broader global economy. While Trump and Congress continue their battle over Ford's decision, the company itself has been quietly working on a game-changing move. Ford isn't just relocating production, it's doubling down on the future. They've announced a massive investment in battery technology and electric vehicle infrastructure, pouring billions into research and development. Their plan isn't just to keep up with Tesla, it's to outpace them in areas where traditional automakers hold an advantage: scale, experience, and industrial infrastructure. Ford is building new battery facilities, forming partnerships with global suppliers, and securing resources that will allow them to control more of the electric vehicle supply chain. Ford is betting that by investing in cutting-edge technology now, they can position themselves as the leader in electric vehicles when the market fully transitions. But this strategy comes with significant risks. Expanding overseas means navigating complex political landscapes, dealing with shifting regulations, and facing potential retaliation from an administration that sees this move as un-American. There is also the question of whether consumers will continue to support Ford in the long run, or if the backlash will permanently damage its reputation. And just when it seemed like Ford had everything planned out, Trump had one more weapon left to unleash, one that could change the game entirely. Trump's retaliation plan. For Donald Trump, this wasn't just about one company shifting production overseas. It was a direct challenge to his economic vision. If he let Ford get away with this, what was stopping other corporations from doing the same? The message had to be clear.